Cheers.
And Steve. All right. Well, welcome to the Vacation Rental Life Weekly Roundtable. We changed the name this week. This is the first first episode of the Vacation Rental Life Weekly Roundtable. And we're going to try and add a little bit of structure, and we'll still keep open dialogue and ideas and suggestions, but we always want to have something newsworthy to talk about and some information we'll share with everybody here. And you're more than welcome to throw in your 2 cents, your 4 cents, or your 28 cents, whatever works for you. So Derek wanted to talk this week specifically about some changes over at Airbnb. So Derek, I'm going to go ahead and turn the controls over to you, and you can just tell us what you know about what's going on, and screen share is ready to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess first off, and Steve probably is aware of this, that basically the entire ProHost team at Airbnb has been gutted. From what I've been told, like every single person that, and for those that, I guess we should clarify, for those that don't know, ProHost team is for anyone that manages 5 or more doors. It's something that, a program that took a very long time for them to actually enroll. I pushed them from day one. I mean, I broke their system in 2010 trying to list my 11th property on their platform because they didn't have, they set it up to do 10 or more listings. So I've been pushing them from
so just a clarification there, Derek, for those that might be watching this who have one property and have no idea what you're talking about, can you just define exactly the program that you're talking about at Airbnb?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, ProHost teams gave people that manage more than 5 units a point of contact and a team to work with when you had issues, both unique issues as well as the same issues that everybody else deals with. Rather than talking to an individual random customer service person, you actually could build rapport and have a relationship with somebody and have direct email contact. And like, I even had cell phone numbers of some of my contacts and was able to send them a text message when I was dealing with some issue. Most of the time I still was supposed to run issues through their normal channels, and then my rep would interfere if there was problems, basically, that type of thing. But they were kind of your advocate, your client success person within the team.
And so as your business started to grow, you were really pushing the ProHost team to expand the capabilities because you were hitting 11 properties and having problems.
I mean, to even exist, they didn't have infrastructure supporting the professional hosts for years and years and years. And really, the program is pretty new. I'm trying to remember what year that was. I think 2015 or 16, I flew down to San Francisco for a business meeting, and I basically reached out to Chip Conley, who was their, I forget his title at the time, director of hospitality, special agent to the CEO, something like that. Like, he had a couple titles, but from Genevieve Hospitality Group. He pointed me to somebody actually at Airbnb headquarters, so that when I flew to San Francisco, I could actually meet with them, and then built a relationship around that. And then it got passed around as that person either moved on to different teams or got higher up in the field and stuff. So I've had, I think, 3 people through the years that have handled my accounts.
And so what you're hearing as of today is that the Airbnb ProHost program is gone. There's no more employees as part of that program.
Yeah. Yep.
And Steve, you heard the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that do for the professional host guys?
Well, I mean, the bigger thing for me that I see is that it's a signal of where the company's going. That's the part that, like, that was deprioritized, basically, is what I've been told. Specifically was the word that I was given. So basically, Airbnb does not put stock and does not care about the professional hosts. They are worried about the individual homeowner or property owner or renter.
I would argue that it's not that they don't care. They think they're going to get all of them now.
But
Where was that?
Yeah, I think we lost Steve on that. He was saying that maybe it looks like they. I want to get back to that comment when he comes back. But I think it could indicate a change in direction for the organization, right? Because when you think about business growth as a whole, the more spread for your customers are, the more safer it is for you as a whole, right? So if they have, 50% of their business in hosts that have 1 or 2 properties, or less than 5, let's call it, and then they have 50% that are in professional hosts who have a ton more people, a ton more properties. When a professional host pulls their listings off their platform, that's a greater risk. They lose a lot more money in listings in that scenario, right? If you're managing 20, 30, 40, 50 properties and you decide to delist on Airbnb at that time, then it's a big challenge for them as a revenue generator. They're going to lose those that revenue. And so a shift in the gameplay for Airbnb could be this play where they're trying to get refocused on the actual independent host. Now, Steve, I did a fantastic job stalling just until you were able to log back on. You are still muted, so we'd like to hear that comment about how it might not be what Derek sees it as.
Yeah, no, and I'm not necessarily arguing Derek's point. I think I'm just saying more along the lines of the reasoning behind it from an Airbnb perspective is they've already made the connections with the vast majority of the PMS platforms or distribution channel managers to the point where it's, they feel like they're going to get the industry regardless of whether they have a big service staff focused on it. They had to have that, to, sell into professional managers. But now that they have that in place, that infrastructure's there, I can see why, I always, whenever somebody makes a decision like this, not that I always agree with it, but I sit on their board. I go, okay, I'm sitting on their board and I'm understanding what they're doing from a logical perspective. They've got to cut costs. Where do they cut? Well, if we've got those guys is their mindset. Now, 5 years ago, they didn't. Today, they pretty much do. And it's in the markets where they're strong, they're a necessary evil, and professional managers are going to keep, distributing on that platform, regardless of whether they have a really strong staff to service that grouping. I think that's the mentality. That's the
play. I mean, Derek's looking at it from you're not going to give the professional host the service they need. And Steve's point is, at this point, it doesn't matter because you're locked in anyway.
Yeah. It's kind of like
a chicken dinner or sucka, whatever side of the fence you want to look at. Right.
Think about it from when Expedia was growing their hotel inventory. They probably had a higher degree of service, actual individuals servicing hotels. Once they had everybody on the platform, it was like, you know what? We don't need that level of service anymore, especially from a sales perspective and growing the inventory. And I think that's where they're at. They had to choose something, and they probably chose a lot of different components to cut expense. But this was just one of them. So not disagreeing with them. I just think that's probably the mentality.
Sure. And I think, as a business, somebody that's run many businesses myself, and everybody here is a business owner. When you think about raising your price, think about this for a second. You raise your price across the board, $10 to $11 for your widget on 1,000 people. You just made $1,000, right? 5 people leave because they don't like the price increase. You lost $50, but you made $950.
Right.
So that could in fact be the play here. And they could also be aware though, be aware of this shift. This is a cost cutting move, right? As Elliot says in the chat, he's cutting the fat, right? Great point, but watch out for the double hook, right? Because you might see some rate increases or listing fee percentage increases or something like that coming next to try and make up some of this money that they're just not getting because of the COVID shutdown. So we got to keep that in mind.
Them increasing their margin is a given, irregardless of COVID or anything else over time, right? Especially as they head towards probably another attempt at an IPO at some point. They're gonna hit a growth wall, and they probably already have. So the only way to grow revenue is to grow margin. And
Sure.
we knew they were gonna. If you didn't see that coming, you're asleep at the wheel. So I remember when I used to pay VRBO $100 to list. So
Those are good.
I'd like to chime in with a thought about Airbnbs now. So today I was on again, Simon Lehman had a profitability hub free conference today. And a lot of the discussion today was how, especially because of COVID, and the perception that hotels are able to provide like a more uniform cleanliness standard and whatnot, that kind of the move is professional hosts, the people who take this as a serious business and not the one-off, two-off people who have a vacation rental, would be kind of the people who would survive through this, thrive after this. So I'm not saying that they're absolutely right, but if that is kind of the belief that you kind of work off of, then Airbnb's move of trying to continue to cater to, the hobbyist may not be, kind of the best move, since I think a lot of people are going to want to know that you're doing professional cleaning and all that stuff. And, so I think there's kind of a double-edged sword about that move of moving away from the professional host. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could chime in with what I seen in lumber yards when, in 2007, 8, 9, 10, the box stores moved in. I remember Lowe's nearly giving me a sales agent, and she functioned as an employee of mine. I mean, she went out and measured for carpet, got the paint together, got the lights together. I mean, it was like having an employee. Went to another box store, same service, high level of service. Guess what we have today? Guess how much service I get from those folks today? Zero. My sales rep went back to working the floor. And I said, "What's up, dude?" He's like, "Why should we even care about the contractors? Because we put every local lumber yard out of business. This is where you're going to buy. And we make such high margin off the retail business, we don't care." I mean, that's the same business model they're putting forward. And I've only been, with Airbnb, 6 to 8 months. So I don't have near the experience you folks have with their platform. But I can tell you, in the last 6 weeks, it went to hell. Hell. And, I was really impressed with it the first 6 months and thought, man, this is really slick. They gave me the little professional site and could send people there, and, had 5, 6 properties on there. And, basically use it as a platform to fill the rest of them. But now, I mean, I had a guest come in and looked at my unit, and I think she booked something somewhere else. Hell, they gave her her money back. She had her luggage in there. So there wasn't nothing wrong with the unit. And they gave her her money back and didn't even ask. And I was like, really? What in the hell? And I gave all my tenants refunds that canceled with the COVID. And, it didn't bother me. We just rented somebody else. But, I've just seen it go downhill. I don't know what's going to happen when, bookings.com, if they get that API connection. They have a lot more traffic than Airbnb worldwide. They do huge business. And I think they may become a player. But I really don't know. I haven't heard any of the seasoned AirBNB-VRBO people say anything good about bookings.com. But if you look at them worldwide, they are a player. And they're next in line to get that connection. I'm going to try to use them. I put one listing on there. It's a total pain in the nuts. But I'm going to try it because I think my business model is going up against the motels.
Boyd, when you say API connection with Booking, what are you speaking of specifically?
the way I understand it, and I'm certainly not an expert, but the API connection is the speed in which the front end works with the back end. In that instant calendar update, instant information being out there. Zillow just started charging us for our rental listings $1 or something a day to put a rental house on Zillow now because they got an API connection. It has to do with the speed.
Yeah, so the API connection, from a technical term, is application program interface. So it's not so much the speed, but the actual bridge to connect one thing to another. And so what it does is when they get the API, it lets one piece of software talk to another piece of software. Now, Derek, you use booking.com, right?
I have. I currently turned off my connection with them.
Okay, so but they do
yes.
they
I
have
had-
an API
I had
right
an
now
API.
that Boyd is talking about?
So the API connection is on a more, has to do with channel managers and the software that you might be running. So that's more of an individual basis type thing. So I'm not sure, if you're using software, Boyd, or if you're just.
This is just information I picked up randomly. I can't validate any of it.
Okay. Yeah. So booking.com.
I'm on booking.com.
Go ahead.
So I'm on booking.com.
Yeah.
I lost him.
Oh,
He's muted.
yeah. And I'm going to sign back up with booking.com. I've been waiting for my channel manager to put the booking rules in place because they changed their pricing strategy to go to Steve's point, where they, rather than just taking their commission on the rental nights, they started taking commission on all fees, everything. And my channel manager didn't have the ability for me to adjust my fees by that percentage. And so I X'd them because I was going into the summer season when they pushed that policy into place. So I was heading into my busiest time of year, and it just made financial sense for me to ditch it and then come back to it once the software, which ended up taking twice as long as it's supposed to, which is always what happens. But now they have that technology. So I plan on signing back up, and I'll just bump up my fees by that percentage and move on.
Yeah, and I'm able to change my percentages and everything through my PMS onto booking.com. And honestly, I have to say, once you get the settings right of when I initially connected to Booking, there were lots of people holding out, kind of blocking my calendar by booking and then canceling last minute. And so at first I didn't like it, but once you get some of these core settings right, man, booking.com, you get people who are willing to pay, a good substantial amount of money for your property. And it's been solid for me. So, it's definitely worth the time and effort to try to get onto booking.com, at least from my experience.
Yeah, I would say especially international markets. I mean, booking.com has a bigger presence in Europe and Asia currently than it does in the United States. I mean, their biggest brand in the US is Priceline. As far as how much market share anything has, but I think I do see that growing in the coming months and years. They definitely have the deep pockets needed to combat Airbnb head on.
Yeah. And I know some folks at booking.com, and I know they do a lot of A/B testing on your actual listing. They'll try this and that and try to see, which version of your, the marketing actually works more effectively for them to make more money. And then that means you make more money. And so they do a lot of kind of internal little tests here and there to improve the interface and to try to drive more people to book.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I know Derek wanted to show some dashboard related stuff on Airbnb tonight as well.
Yeah, well, and I just may want to see what other people had, if other people have seen it, what their thoughts are on it, and that type of thing. Everybody see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, at least for me, came available the next just a couple days ago. Whereas, I know that this is the type of thing that does happen in spits. So some other people might have had this type of dashboard for a while. But they're giving us a lot more in the performance category. Even this little dashboard being nice, saying how many check-ins you have and how many checkouts. But now I'm pulling up there, and this of course is going to be slow probably because I'm on Zoom. So being able to compare similar listings for the last 30 days and see where your bar is compared to the rest of the market. And you also can change this tab and say for the last
do 90 days, Derek. I want to see a tank for COVID.
What's that?
I said do 90 days. I want to see how it tanks for COVID.
Oh, the next 90 days?
Oh, that's next. Oh, you don't have the last.
Yeah, but I mean, there's the last 365.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. But being able to climb back out of that market, and this is, you have to remember, this is just on their channel. So the only thing that they have insight into whether the room was available to them and or booked, but not your total portfolio. So like this, I'll compare nightly rate. So my occupancy was significantly higher than market, but I am priced a little bit more aggressively. So that's probably why I'm beating, and also they also have this conversion tab too, which is something I've been pushing for, to be able to see how your properties are converting compared to competition. Because that's one of those areas, and Matt having been in the SEO and web building game, I mean, that's one of those levers that if you're able to move that lever a little bit, that makes a huge difference in your total.
And I mean, Derek, there's something here to point out too, that like that's not 28%.
Yeah,
that's 0.28%. Like that's
compared to baseline being, and that's
0.16.
week. Yeah, 0.16.
I mean, in general marketing terms, you see conversion rates at anywhere between 0.5% and 2%. So when you're at
non-vacation rentals, those are widgets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but here, I mean, compare from the last 365. That'll be eye-opening too. I don't know how accurate the.
Well, yeah, you were up at 3 something, right? What's that February one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so 0.37. Yeah.
Does it give you your average at the top, Derek?
Yeah, 0.19. And then you also have this first page search impression rate.
What does the click action do on the percentage number there? Like, because I see the arrow.
Let's see. Just describe.
Oh, it defines it. Okay.
Defines it for you. Yeah. Yeah. So average listing to booking conversion 1.75. So that's kind of more in line with what you're talking about, Matt, far as like a 2% conversion rate. My listings for the past 365 is converted at 1.75. So if someone lands on my page, it's converting at just under 2%. That's, it's there can be better for sure. And if the nice thing about this too, you can drill down.
So wait, is that actually telling you that if you appeared in the search, about almost 11% of the time they actually convert to a that's not a booking, that's a search to listing.
Yeah. So
11% of the time they do the search and they click through to the listing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you show up on the first page of search, 11% of the time they're clicking through to
I gotcha.
Your listing, and then 1.75% are actually booking. So,
You just got your
and the other thing that I thought was interesting about this is this whole wish list, because I've heard a lot of talk from people in the space saying that this mattered, but I hadn't seen actually any data from Airbnb talking about, showing that this really mattered. But here's the fact that they threw this in the performance tab now, I think is a pretty strong signal that wish lists matter. And then you can sort then on which properties are getting wish listed.
And for those of you that don't know the wish list feature, it's when an individual goes and they're looking to plan a trip. They're not quite sure what's going on. They're looking at 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 properties. They add your property to a board or a wish list.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what triggers this piece.
Yeah. But, starting some of the things I plan on doing is taking a look at this, because then being able to have this data and then, do things like switch your hero image and seeing what effect that might have on your wish list. See if there's any sort of correlation in what that hero image is and what, and how many are wish listing. Like this property is getting wish listed a lot, and it's what my interior designer calls the pillow shot, your standard hospitality bed shot, which I've found underperforming recently. More going back a year, I actually found that being underperforming versus this type of image, which it's interesting that seems to be making more of a comeback right now, or at least from this one data point. So being able to play with these and seeing which ones are getting clicked through.
What's interesting about that, Derek, is when you think about the actual unit that you're advertising here,
mm-hmm.
The pillow shop might matter for those who are looking for a rest and retreat type of environment.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who are looking to do more sightseeing or entertaining of some sort or visiting friends, the living room shot might be better.
Yeah.
The dining room shot might convert better. It just depends on the very specific type of property that you've got that you're advertising.
Yeah, for sure. And my inventory is primarily downtown urban core condo type stuff. So I'm not talking about small places. And I think you're totally right. If you're booking a 5-10 bedroom property, probably your dining room shot might be the most important, or your kitchen, or one of those two, or a combination thereof. Because people are going to want to gather, or some other outdoor space where those people can gather and spend time together.
How have you seen the view shot perform relative to the bed shot? Because got a lot of data around that. I mean, anytime we had a view, that's what we ran with, because it always seemed to convert the highest.
Yeah.
You have a city view condo in downtown Seattle with a bedroom shot, I just would think that whatever that view is would really, like these other ones.
Yeah. Why do you have the pillow shot on the one where you're titled the view with the view, city view condo?
Ultimately, because my data recently has shown that the view didn't matter as much. I mean, mind you, this is something that changes constantly, I think, but my data had shown that unless the view, basically the only time I found that view shots really performed well is when we were able to get a strategic shot showing both the living space and the view together, versus just like an open view. So something along the lines of this one right here, where you have the living room and you can see the water and see the cruise ship in the background. See similar type thing here. This view shot where you have the downtown Seattle in the background and the living room together, so you can have that reference point. Because I would argue, something like this, this is just pure view shot. It's not.
I think as a guest, I might look at that and wonder if that's iStop or.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the theory that that I've gone with too. But the fact that now I have this data just on the Airbnb platform is going to be something that I need to, that I'll look at and use going forward, that I haven't really had access to this level of granular.
Gary, do you think your guests know what DT means?
I mean, so downtown Seattle Pikes, this is me practicing with keyword stuffing, basically. I mean, that's essentially what I'm trying to accomplish here.
You only have so many characters you can put in the title.
Exactly. Yeah. You have like 50 characters to work with or something like that. So having to trying to get the things that people are searching for in the header, and this is something that I play with all the time and try to come back with, try to manipulate and see what seems to perform over time. But here's your wish list things, dropping precipitously off of the cliff. And although that's interesting, that's just within the past week, but my guess is that's because I've also been pretty booked up. I've this past weekend I only had one or two properties available, so we probably weren't coming up in search too much for us to be able to be wish list. So anyway, and similarly, so booking conversion, booking lead time information. So this one's going to be an interesting one to be able to look at the last 365, I guess. Is what we can. So watch, with COVID, March going from 30-day in advance to 3 days in advance. And this kind of falls in line too with a lot of the information that I've been seeing on from Beyond Pricing and Price Labs and some of the other companies.
Sure, and I mean even the comparables are right in line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not too much difference in comparables. But then, here we're starting to see an uptick. So people are starting to plan a little bit in advance compared to, going from 3 days in advance to 10. That's a big shift in a month.
Hey, Derek, I'm trying something out right now, or I'm planning on trying something out, and I want to get your feedback.
Yeah.
I was in the process of transitioning my Airbnb account from my old account to a new account. And so I have two accounts that have the same listings. And so right now I'm in the process of kind of bringing them back alive, but I'm actually thinking of having different, lead shots for the same property across the two different accounts, and possibly, advertising one as being kind of the more longer term and pricing that accordingly, and settings, and then one as kind of the shorter term, and basically it's kind of a way to experiment, various approaches and variables and text and whatnot to see what works. Because I pride myself on historically knowing how to price my properties.
Yeah.
But right now I'm kind of like, all right, I'm starting all over. So I kind of need to test things out. What are your thoughts on, essentially you have the same exact property, but you're just marketing it at the same time, two different ways, and trying to see, how that's going.
Yeah. I've done that in the past, especially the way that the reason and why I did it was, especially when I was having a hard time with a property for whatever reason, bookings were sluggish for a particular property. Launching a new listing and leveraging the new listing boost that Airbnb gives you to have it be something that might be able to keep the momentum going, and then kind of the goal being that becomes my new main listing once it gets some reviews and everything else. If I get the booking velocity up, that's the one I'd say caveat to that, especially with Airbnb, because I think Airbnb over all other channels, they really care about booking velocity, more so than, HomeAway does care, don't get me wrong, booking.com cares. But I think it's so heavily baked into the Airbnb algorithm where I've noticed it with my own data of once a property gets booked, I'm much more likely to get another booking within a week of that same property. Or similarly, once somebody checks out of a property, magically I seem to get a booking that same day from Airbnb specifically. There's something going on there behind the scenes, I think.
I mean, do we just think that it's Airbnb being smart and saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is a listing that's actually being rented. People want this.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's using smart e-commerce type of logic to the vacation rental space, popular.
Yeah, it's what this person bought, also bought this, right? It's suggestive selling in a lot of ways. And they know, look, they don't make any money unless they actually book a listing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, so that's the risk side of what you're talking about, John, is that by basically splitting your calendar between two different listings, both listings are going to have a lower booking velocity. So what that means for what I would say is, why would you not just leverage your one listing and just make all the booking rules within the Airbnb platform? Because that's also expanded now, where you can create different discount levels based, from anything from a single night all the way up to 28 nights, have different booking rules based off of length of stay.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of exploring, and I started this because I wanted to transition, one account to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 2 accounts now that both have, decent reviews, and one obviously has a lot more. So I was thinking of doing something like that. All right, that's good to hear. So thanks.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, I mean, have you, from your experience, what do you think about the booking velocity play as far as Airbnb and how they do it versus VRBO, Booking.com, any other channels? Have you noticed that too?
I have. I will say that a good deal of my clients are heavily reliant on VRBO still, not Airbnb. I don't do a lot of urban, not by design. There's not a lot of scaled urban providers, less actually over the last 60 days. So most of my clients are in more traditional markets where Airbnb isn't as strong. So we don't, it's not as big of a concern. We just don't even look at it all that much. I like to see, I loved everything that you showed. I think the direction they're taking with the data that they're providing is great to help you to optimize, but I honestly don't spend a lot of time on Airbnb.
Yeah.
Despite, working towards the first API years ago, and pushing them into the more traditional side of the space, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is some interesting perspective that you have through LiveRes, and that API being the first one that they finally opened up into the space. So that is interesting. Yeah, and I think, I mean, from what I've seen too, this beats anything that I've seen out of VRBO marketplace type of data that they launched. I still don't have good marketplace data for my HomeAway account.
It's only been 20 years. What do you want? Yeah, I know. No, I was impressed with what you showed for sure.
And maybe this is ultimately why they think that, like, to go back to your point about why they may not need market managers as much, because they've, now I have
automating what we need, right? So
yeah, exactly. I have the data that I used to have to beg and plead for them to send me. I have detailed data now to compare myself to the market and differentiate myself in the vacation rental market as far as getting new listings and new properties. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, I guess, going forward, how much help I need.
What would you rather have? Really great data that you could use to make decisions, or some person at Airbnb headquarters you can call, right? So
yeah,
don't need that guy.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenging part that I see is without without that department pushing leadership into hearing our needs, that we're never going to see any changes. Is kind of what the part that scares me the most about the pivot, is the fact that, yes, I may not need my pro host people as much if they put good enough systems in place with their current staff and build me more tools like this instead. However, as the industry changes, as it grows up, as more things happen, are we going to see new APIs? Are they going to stop, producing APIs or upgrading their APIs so that we're getting all the information that we want on the software side out of them and all of that? Because I don't know, in my opinion, chances are that they're going to slow down all of that production if they're going to focus on their individual hosts.
Yeah. I can definitely validate that. I've been trying for years to actually get an API gateway directly into New. We recognize the value add mainly because of propagation delays. We identified that there's a latency error that exists between when a booking or reservation is propagated directly into the export calendar feature. And that delay, we've noted to be anywhere between 24 to 72 hours. That can be huge, because if you have like a short stay, like a 1 day to 2 day stay that happens at a time to where they're cutting down server costs, then you can completely miss it. And for my company, that makes a huge difference, but since we automate every aspect of the cleanliness as well. So they're definitely have a philosophy to where they're trying to limit their exposure, both from a risk and securities perspective, as well as from an insurance perspective. Likewise, they've also faced a lot of issues with phishing, to where a good portion of their competitors had direct access to their customer base since they had a lot of public information available. And a lot of customers felt awkward from third-party solicitation, like primarily guest, which is why they got rid of, like, if you look in the export calendar feature, they at one point used to give the guest full name, reservation, a direct line of contact, and an embedded email that would prompt, that would just layer AirBNB as a filter. They've now gotten rid of all of that with just the last 4 digits of the cell phone just being the sole information of verification and validation. They also delete everything else from the calendar as well to ensure that a user can't keep track of their data. I think they're realizing their competitors are leveraging their data to their advantage. So it makes sense.
So what's the number one way you transition a customer from an Airbnb booking to your customer base? What's the number one way that you think is the best process to do that?
When I was hosting, especially at the professional stage, a lot of it came, it was more reaction than proactive, where after a guest would stay with me, I would leave a personalized card or a note or something within the message that says, hey, if you would like to book cheaper next time, you can book with me direct. And I would just direct them directly to my website. That way they'd know that this is the next place that they stay. I wouldn't get return visitors very frequently, but at least I'd say somewhere between 20 to 25%. We'd get some people that would come back. Anytime that they would travel to Seattle, they'd check their listing, or they'd want to check our website to book directly and build longer relationships.
I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of rise in the vacation rentals, especially in the drive-to destinations. All right, coming out of COVID, people want to go on vacation. Anything that's drive-to is a golden opportunity for repeat bookings.
Yep.
And so we've got to figure out how to transition these folks, have conversations, pick up the phone, talk to them, find reasons to talk to our guests so that we can get their email address. Because ultimately, that's going to be the best way we communicate with them down the road, between email and phone.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get the phone number through Airbnb, so as soon as they book, you're good. Email's great. It just depends on which generation you're targeting. We have information that if you're targeting someone at Gen Z or millennial, they prefer text message by far, by a very, very large margin. If you're doing any sales campaign and you're not prioritizing around SMS or Twilio, you're failing there. If it's someone that's particularly like you're talking your Gen X, your boomers, they prefer more direct interaction, especially boomers. Like they love a courtesy call. They love the handwritten touch. They love to feel more personalized. They're not so comfortable with being like an object. So that's just some differentiation and stuff that we've learned, at least with new over the years.
Don't combine boomers with Xers, by the way.
Sorry, Steve.
My kids try to do that every day. No, I would agree with everything you just said for sure. And I think if you are not actively building a database and doing it in the way that that particular generation wants to be communicated to via these avenues, you're crazy. If you look at the cost of new customer acquisition, the current VRBO and Airbnb opportunity is massive. That will not stay that way, meaning the margins that they charge are only going to accelerate and get larger. Taking the opportunity to build a customer database in an era where it's inexpensive to do so is critical. And just not communicating with them outside of those platforms, it just makes zero sense right now. Because if you look at the cost per acquisition of a cost per click PPC campaign relative to both of those, it's generally more expensive to do direct that way. SEO, obviously not the case, but that's going to change. These guys are going to lever up their margin, just like Expedia et al. Did in the hotel industry, and Expedia is VRBO, and Airbnb is not. They're not nicer, benevolent people. They're going to raise the margin. It's going to get it more expensive to do so. So right now, every single person that is operating on these platforms needs to be super aggressive at getting to that customer every single time they pay the price for a new customer. And they're not Airbnb's customers, they're yours. And being aggressive to build that database is critical because it's going to change. I remember, guys, I paid 1 cent per click to goto.com for the first PPC for Orlando vacation rentals. It's $15 today per click. So it's going to happen. It's just going to go up. And, I built a database of customers around those customers that I was able to get very inexpensively in the GoTo Overture days. You guys don't even know these names. Overture was acquired by Yahoo pre-Google. Google comes along. Oh, it's great, man. This Google thing's awesome. Then they have AdWords copying what Yahoo did, and it just goes through the roof. So the same thing's going to happen in channel. Already has. I mean, like I said earlier on this Zoom, I remember paying $100 a listing on VRBO in Orlando for a year. It was my total outlay for a year. And then everybody was like bitching when it went to $1,000, and it was still really cheap relative to transactional, right? And so it only goes up. And the key thing is to look at it as a new customer acquisition cost and look at the lifetime value of that customer and make sure that you acquire that data set so that you can go back to them. And Kwame's point is you got to do it the right way for that particular generation. Couldn't agree more.
Well, and from the prospect of referral consulting, which is what I do a lot of, you need to find out the expectation of your guests and how they want to be communicated, because they could be a millennial who wants emails. We can't bucket people. We might as well just ask them, hey, thanks for booking my place. I'll be in touch with you 24 hours with the check-in instructions. Oh, by the way, how do you prefer to be communicated with?
Amen.
Is it email or text messaging? And is that good, not just for the stay, but also after the stay? Yes. Fantastic. Note it and then figure out how to execute on it. That's the biggest thing. I see it all the time. And to Steve's point, we're talking about customer acquisition and lifetime value of a client. If you're a fly-to destination, you've got a big problem. A big problem, because the cost of customer acquisition is through the roof on that. You're not going to get a lot of that repeat unless you're like, a tropical island that somebody comes back to year after year after year. But that's not common. And so if you are in a drive-to destination, a place where people can get to without getting on a plane, then then your strategy is completely different and should be focused on retention of that customer as much as possible. And I just don't see enough of it in the industry. You know, trying to tackle this thing all at one big thing right when you start, that's not the right strategy either, because that's I think why people don't do this. It becomes overwhelming. Instead, small little pieces and iterate. You know, in the world of software, they call it the MVP, the minimum viable product. What can you do for an email list today? Can you just get something started? And then can you modify it later on? Can you do it once a month, once every 2 months, and then from there go to once a month or every 3 weeks or whatever, right? It's just about getting started and building the habit on yourself for running a business. Because even though you might have 1 or 2 properties, is not a hobby. And like, I mean, it can generate you a really amazing lifestyle, you know? And I think that we need to see more people look at this like we're calling it now, the vacation rental life. Like, get back to the freedom that we all wanted when we got into this business. A lot of us got in because we saw a certain vision of what this would be. And then we got into it. And then COVID hit, everything went to hell in a handbag. And now we're just trying to figure out how to get back to status quo, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
So Matt, you just said, you know, if you live on a tropical island and you're not a drive-to destination, you know, then you're in trouble. So what to someone like me or Derek, what are some thoughts that you have in terms of getting, you know, repeat customers or building the database? Because I do have a database, and I am going to start my email campaign. But you know, any thoughts?
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is sell. No, I'm kidding. So like, you have a completely different problem, right? So there's 2 things I would do. First of all, I would develop a strategy for the fly to destination where I would continuously remind them that this is where they want to be, not in Idaho, not in Oklahoma. They want to be in Hawaii. And I would remind them every single month why they want to be there. Beautiful pictures of clear ocean water, people surfing, people sunbathing. Like, there's not enough of that happens, right? So that's the first list you want to do, is get people, you know, coming along and seeing the vision in their mind. You need to paint the picture with your emails to remind them that it sucks where they are and they should be in Hawaii. That's the reality. Hammock swinging, beer drinking, all that stuff. The second thing is a completely different strategy on the island. So I would be marketing to kitchen remodelers, home remodelers, construction people, the nurse thing that you worked on with COVID, marketing to all these hospitals, anybody that needs temporary or short-term housing that's like, you know, 8 weeks or less, let's say between 2 weeks and 8 weeks, and consistently be in their inbox with other things, you know, other ways to do it. It's a completely different model. You're not painting the picture. Instead, you're painting a different picture. And so your messaging to healthcare workers is completely different than construction companies. But you've got to build a partnership of people that know that you exist, and you need to stay in touch with them. And that's your number 1 job, is making sure you build great relationships so that people send listings to you on a regular basis. By the way, think about partnering with a travel agency in Hawaii where you're bringing them your potential guests. They do the packaging. It doesn't cost your guest any more money, but now they also have affiliate programs. They have kayak rentals and all these other things that you might not have. And they have guests that you don't have. They have an email list that you don't have. So when you partner with them, you can send their advertisement, a joint co-op advertisement thing, out to your list, and they can do the same for you. So you have to figure out how to do that. I mean, it's a different story for Boyd. We think that Boyd is in the world of a drive-to destination, but he's kind of like, as he's indicated before on some of these calls, kind of like not really where stuff is. Like, he has a number of people that rent from him that are construction companies, and they come in for big projects. Well, it's it's all about the relationship at that point, right? And it's about finding out who's involved in all of these projects and then starting to think, okay, who also does projects like this? Where do those people come from? How do I get to those people, right? I'm gonna be talking to the Uber drivers. I'd be talking to the Lyft drivers. I'd be talking to people at the airport. I'm literally, you know, building relationships with anybody I think is in touch with my ideal customer at that point. I'm building out my referral partnerships. That's what I'm focused on.
Yeah, and Matt, I mean, really the different take on what you're talking about then when you're looking at those referral partnerships is the lifetime value of the referral partnership. Like, to put it in that type of context, like going to having the relationship that Boyd has with those construction companies, that's extremely valuable to his business. It's worthwhile putting in the time, the money, the effort, whatever it takes. If it takes you delivering a box of chocolates to that construction company receptionist every single week for a month or 2 months or whatever that is in order to get their referral business, might be worthwhile if that downstream.
And it's way cheaper than paying a listing fee on Airbnb or VRBO, right?
Yeah.
It's cheaper and it's less risk because, as we've heard Boy say before, Airbnb just up and gave some lady her money back and she still had her luggage in his place. Well, that doesn't happen through a referral partner because they're talking directly to you. There's nobody else to talk to at that point. And it's always cheaper to pay referral fees to your referral partners less than what you would pay Airbnb. So if you're paying Airbnb 3% or whatever the numbers are, then you pay your referral people, 1%, whatever. Come up with something that works and is manageable and is flexible.
I mean, 3% is your direct cost, but when you think about it in the whole picture, your real cost is 18% because they're charging 15% to the guest, and that's money you could be charging to the guest yourself if you got that direct booking, in theory. So when you look at it that way, your real cost of listing on Airbnb is closer to 18%, and same's true for VRBO and booking.com too, especially since they're charging now 15%, not just on the nightly rate, but your cleaning fee, any resort fee or any other fee structure that you decide to add on, they're getting their 15% on that too. So that's making kind of your real booking value cost 20%, maybe, depends on how many fees you have stacked in.
John, next time you go to Hawaii, I'd be best friends with the people that run these parasailing boats, right? Mm-hmm. People on the boat captains all day long. They spend 4 hours, 8 hours with people on the boat that rented the boat or went on a trip with them or went parasailing. Every one of those people is talking to these people at end. Hey, where are you staying? Oh man, yeah, that's kind of messed up. You should stay over at John's place. Boom, referral. Right? Build a relationship with these folks, and it will take time. It's not like you can just list with them and you get a booking. It doesn't work like that, but you'll be much happier in the long run.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever read a book, Raving Fans?
What's that?
Can you say that again?
Has anybody ever read the book Raving Fans?
Oh yeah, it's a great book.
You remember that from way back?
You wouldn't be talking about my book, would you? Word of mouth referrals, lifelong customers, and raving fans. That's not the one you're talking about.
I read it. Parker and I were talking about it today. I don't know that I didn't realize you were the author.
No, I'm not the author of Raving Fans, but I'm the author of more word of mouth referrals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Forget Raving Fans.
So, I think that stands true. And that's kind of the premise I took on these on Airbnb is pretty basic descriptions, basic pictures. You look at my reviews, most people say, I was surprised it was so nice. They actually want to rewrite the listing for me. I had two in the last 2 weeks, folks come down from Chicago, and this is not a real Chicago-friendly area because we're 3 hours from Chicago, and we've had some issues, let's say. We're leased an Airbnb to some gals from Chicago, great stays, respectful, cleaned the place up, awesome. You know, I reached out to them after, said, you know, feel free to contact me direct next time. They were tickled to death. And I would imagine they would probably have a little hard time booking a place on Airbnb. Just to guess, because with the problems we've had in the community as a whole. But that's worked for us is, you know, under promise, over deliver. And you can usually hook them and get them back. They're happy to stay with you again. Am I muted?
Nope. No, I heard you.
I mean, that's just our take. And Parker and I had that discussion today about under promising and over delivering.
Yeah, you know, I talk about this in every one of my speeches. I actually
the key to getting people on your side.
Well, I would argue it's a little bit different.
Okay, let's hear it.
Pillar number one inside my book, out of 4 pillars on the care package, is over deliver. And I define that as exceeding your client's expectations.
Absolutely.
It's not under promising and over deliver. There's a big difference. And here's
Okay.
why.
Okay.
When people under promise, they hold back. They don't give it their all. And the real benefit, a real integrity piece behind over deliver is just finding out what the expectation of others is. So when Kwame was talking earlier about how to communicate with millennials and Gen Xers and all that stuff, it's really just finding out how do you want to be communicated with and how quickly you expect a response from us. If you are expected in 24 hours and we get it to you in 12, we over delivered. But we can't over deliver if we don't actually know what the expectations are. So that comes down to having conversations with people. That's really what it is.
You know, the feedback I've got mainly from my guests is they were surprised of how nice the units were. That kind of feedback, you know.
You know, Boyd, I'm never surprised how nice you are. You're a nice guy.
Yeah, I'm real nice. Anyway, but that's just what I found. You know, I don't know. I've heard the debate of, you know, professional photos versus cell phone photos. You know, I've heard the whole spiel. And I just think taking care of your guest, giving them more than they expect. And the communication it was really odd for me moving into this space because I would text a guest, okay, on their cell phone number, and it'd weird them out. They didn't like it. They wanted to stay on that Airbnb platform. And that was totally odd to me. I couldn't understand it. You know, and that was mostly the younger crowd that were like that. So I just kind of, you know, played along and did it through the Airbnb app when those folks come, and if they texted me, I started texting. But I think you're right. You probably should ask them. The ones you can text with, talk to on the phone, you got a shot of retaining them.
Yeah.
You want to stay strictly on the platform and are weirded out by the least little thing. It's pretty hard communication. I mean, it was eye-opener for me, actually. I didn't even know people cared. I thought most of them wanted to be on text or call, you know, and some of them don't like it. So it was eye-opening to me. I don't know what your guys is. I think just ask them. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think asking and leading them to the direction that you want to, like if, you know, the way that I've done it with Airbnb is I'm upfront and honest with them. Like, hey, if you're willing to give me your direct email and the best phone number, because for a while, this was some time ago, Airbnb even masked the phone number. They didn't give us direct phone numbers. They had it to some virtual number that got redirected to the guests, so we didn't even get those phone numbers. But you know, I specifically asked guests for as direct contact information because I am honest with them that because Airbnb is filtering those emails, they may not get the communication like I intend. And so to make sure that that doesn't happen, you know, give me your email address, give me your phone number, let me text you directly. That way there's no lags. I mean, you know, as far as the guest, Airbnb guest that only wants to communicate on platform, you know, letting them, like, what happens if Airbnb's platform dies? and we're so used to that platform working, or there's a lag. And I've seen it, I've, using the platform as long as I have, I've seen it where sometimes messages lag 30 minutes. And if you're in the middle of a check-in type of scenario, that 30 minutes could be everything to that guest, where they have a question on how to do something, how to access your spare key or whatever that case may be. If they don't have timely information, that's a horrible experience for them. So
yeah, think about the market that we're in too. So many companies shutting down, people going into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
All of a sudden someone presses the power button at a company and poof, everything's gone. Like,
yeah. So direct, so trying to using this time to kind of sell guests into that, let me get direct connection with you, because ultimately you're my guest. You're not Airbnb's guest. You're my guest. And I want to make sure you have a great time at my property and a great experience. So. And then from there, hopefully you'd have permission from there to continue to market to them and continue to build that relationship for the repeat business, like what we were talking about. Getting them to come back or refer other people. Hope you had a great time. Go to the classic sales thing. Do you know anybody else? In Boyd's case, do you know somebody? You came here for this type of work. Is there anybody else from your company that's going to need to come here in the next year? Is there, or is there another colleague of yours that might have to make a business trip to my area, or any of that type of stuff, to be able to ask for the referral that way? Matt's the expert in that, though, so I don't want to step on his toes.
I'm a big believer you should never ask for referrals. It's okay to ask for introductions. But referrals are when you ask for somebody to actually buy from you. The introduction is when you ask for somebody who's in a position to refer you. So it's different to say, do you know somebody who helps helps recommend people at the construction company on where to stay? That's different than saying, somebody who needs a place to stay, right? Because when we ask for referrals, oftentimes we don't get referrals. Referrals are people who are ready, willing, and able to buy. Well, we get our leads. And to be perfectly frank, leads are garbage, right? They're shopping around to everything else. A referral is somebody who was pre-sold, somebody ready, willing, and able to buy. So, big believer that we shouldn't ask for referrals. We should definitely ask for, those introductions to referral sources, though. Those are great to do, for sure. Yeah. So, good, great conversation tonight. Anybody else got anything before we head out? Kwame, what you got?
I just had a very quick ask. I would love to get some feedback on some of the ads that we're currently working on. Just really quick A/B testing on which messaging you prefer. So if it's all right for everyone, I just kind of want your feedback on what you like and what you don't.
Okay. So are you going to email? What are you going to do?
Nope. Share screen.
Oh, go ahead.
So we're in between 3 different messaging components, and this is actually one of the different messages. Let me know if you can see this.
Yeah.
But those are the 3 that we're in between.
I kind of blow them up and then go from left to right or something. Yeah.
Sure.
And just arrow over.
How do you do that? Do you know how to do that? Mm-hmm. No, he's a cleaner.
Yeah, my initial feeling is that the blue background, the transparency of the blue background is too dark and the letters don't pop enough off of it.
Okay.
I can learn to understand you.
That's my thought.
What did you think of the text, Matt? Was any of the messages resonate?
I don't know. I mean, I don't read the words, right? So to me, yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I see ads like this, I don't generally read the wording. I look at the picture associated with it. And I'm trying to look through that and look at the picture and trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
It looks like some hands.
I had a cleaner pitch me a couple weeks ago, and it's like, oh, you need to refer all your cleaning to us, and we'll take all the liability, and blah blah blah. And, he's off the chart expensive. I couldn't use him, but that was his pitch. But if you want to pull my ads up, I'll show you what I put on my Airbnb ads to promote it. I use some stock images to kind of enhance. I don't know if it'll help drive your cleaning business, but it may.
Sure. I'm listening.
So
Pull it up. I don't know how to.
Kwame, the Elliot was saying that there's no pop, short and simple, needs a pick, something to catch the eye.
Use some pictures, in my opinion.
It's just a little dark, I think. And I mean, I think, are you trying to convey safety with COVID, or because I saw the word contactless, but only after you told me to look at the wording.
So what we're actually trying to do is, before we start testing the creative, which is kind of the image that goes into the background, so the color schemes that goes around it, we're actually just trying to test which message resonates first. Like there's tons of different A/B testing that you do in marketing. We're just trying to get as clear of a message as possible, see which message gets the most clicks, and from there, start playing around with the creative to make it more.
Well, so I guess my question is does the messaging matter?
Yeah, it does. We have the same background currently. We have 3 different messages being shown to similar audiences, and we're seeing significant differences within the click rates. So it's giving us validation as to which message matters most. And I kind of didn't want to lead you guys before I gave you the data, but the big learning that we had was that any of the ads that featured the enhanced cleaning words got clicked the most. Like those are the ones that had the highest click rate by far. The next one was peace of mind and the guests, and to say that you're like giving your guest something around the lines peace of mind and giving your guests the stays that they deserve. It was kind of a weird, it's not a neg, but it's like an interesting play to where many hosts are gratifying and they believe in wanting to offer an experience that is highly positive. They're kind of like karma, where they live by a golden rule and want to ensure that their hosts are in a position to, where guests are in a position that they're really enjoying their stay. And so that was by like really, really close to the enhanced cleaning. Like those two were like really, really almost neck and neck. And earn more doing less was like the one that like no one wanted to click. Thanks, Elliot.
I think you also might want to run some A/B testing on that background, because if you had a whiter background, your text would probably pop more. And if you're saying that your messaging does matter and you play with the design a little bit, you might find that those words will pop more off the page and you'll get even higher clicks.
Yeah.
I felt that they were washed out, and so I couldn't focus on the wording, you know?
Throw my ad out there, Matt. You can pull it up.
How would I get your ad?
Just go to Airbnb and pull it up in Kokomo.
Well, that's a listing though, not an ad, right?
Well, look at my listing. I can send you an ad that I did, a brochure, but it's similar to that. I used some stock images and promoted that we're cleaning and doing self check-ins with no contact, and you pull one of them up and just look at it. I mean, I don't know how to send you the brochure I did last week, but it had a little more color and a little more pictures. I don't know if it make any difference, but
Yeah.
Well, I think too, you're comparing apples to oranges here, because Kwame's got Facebook, social media ads.
Yeah, I put these on social media.
Oh, this is what he's talking about here. So,
Wait, are you talking about listings or are you talking about ads?
this is a
I've
list,
done
this is the
both.
listing one.
I've done both.
You can see this.
Where the cleaners, the stock cleaners, Parker, where are you showing it?
I'm showing your ad here.
Let me see it.
This one here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, show him that. Show him one of the cleaners.
So
Yeah, that's one of my stock pictures on
Right.
on my ad on Airbnb. But
Mhm.
Chose to work with New because it's I was impressed with the
I don't know if that makes any difference. We did an ad and we promoted, the self-cleaning, self-check-in, and we posted on Facebook a little bit and sent it out to the agents and sent it out to the insurance folks. That's
Well,
what
right. And let me just clarify something, boy, because I think we're talking about two
Yeah.
completely different things, right? So
Yeah.
what Kwame is running is social media ads, which fly by in a heartbeat, right? And so what those ads have to do is stop us from scrolling. And when they stop us from scrolling, then we can pay attention to what the thing says on it first. If you go back and you look at I just watched this documentary again, the Fire Festival, right? The whole fraud thing that happened. But the reason they had the scale that they had at Fire Festival was because their entire ad campaign was based on a single orange square with an embedded click. So that when you're scrolling, you see no color at all, and all of a sudden you see an orange square. And all they did was elicit people to post an orange square. That's it, with a link in it. And when you click the link, it went to their website. But it was this orange square. All it was a block of orange. And so it got people to stop from scrolling. And so you have to look at that behavior that happens when Kwame's talking about his ads versus what you're talking about when they're actually physically already on a listing. They're also two different buyers, right? What you're showing us there is a guest buyer, an individual who's going to book your property or possibly refer you. In Kwame's case, it's specifically to an owner or a host. So different thought processes completely. Elliot.
Here's the one we put up for, like, that we sent to insurance. That's kind of what it looks like. And then off to the side, it has all the verbiage.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a good
Well-
ad, but that's kind of what we do.
Well, so, something to think about, Boyd, is if you're able to look at your data that I was showing on the earlier part of the call on your Airbnb listing, if you know the date that you made the changes to your ad copy, look at your conversion rate change over time. Look at your week over week change and to see if you're seeing an uptick in your conversion.
Yeah, I've done that, and we've even looked at AirDNA. In this market, it's just not accurate information because 90% of my stuff is private bookings. I get a small percentage from Airbnb and the booking sites, and then I convert them to private listings immediately. So even in the rest of the market, there's so many off-book deals that data in this market has never been accurate. We went to a conference 10 years ago, and when Zillow was coming out with the smart pricing and the bigger players were in the market where they updated your prices, by the minute or by the hour or whatever, by satellite telling you what you could get for this property in this area anywhere in the country. And it's a big rollout in California. We went to this conference through a software company, and it just wasn't accurate in our market because there's so many off-book deals. It's not recorded, and even AirDNA in our market is not even close to accurate.
Yeah.
So, I look at those things. I've looked at the same thing you looked at that you showed us tonight, and it's a good kind of basis, but real numbers in this market is not real. I'm sure it is in bigger markets, but in the Midwest and small communities, there's a lot of handshake deals that goes on, a lot of them. And,
Yeah.
They just don't get reported.
Higher margin though.
So
No,
I consideration.
Yeah, and I completely what I'm encouraging you to look at is not so much
If
it's
my
not the conversion.
click rate changed,
Yeah,
and
all that conversion to see if the changes you made actually are.
I agree. But to be honest, the last 6 weeks, I hardly had time to breathe,
Yeah.
let alone research data.
Yeah.
I got, I had a tenant die last week of COVID. I got another one infected. We had, multiple issues in the last 6 weeks that most people wouldn't be able to handle. But we're making it. But data research has not been on the plate at all.
Yeah, but I mean, over time, looking at that data,
Oh, I agree.
making those
I agree
tweaks,
100%. And I do study those things. I've looked at them really hard, spent hours looking at them.
yeah,
Kind of weigh out, how much of it is truly relevant and what I can actually get today from my property and what I need to do to get revenue in every day. I learned a lot of that. I like doing exit strategies or exit interviews on guests if I can. If I can take them a Starbucks card and talk to them, find out what they liked and didn't like, I find that real helpful.
absolutely.
I do stuff along those lines, but I agree with everything you guys are saying, but just throwing out my 2 cents worth.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think we're going to call that a wrap. We're at about 90 minutes. Again, we'd love to invite everybody over to our new Facebook group, Vacation Rental Life, over on Facebook. We're starting to build out our Facebook group with a whole bunch of people exchanging information here and there. So feel free to post. We'll be posting these recordings in there as well, so people have access to them. Feel free to carry on the conversation there. That's where we're all about. And make sure when you jump in the group, you answer the questions so you can help us out and understand who's who. And then we'll be back here next Tuesday night on the brand new Vacation Rental Life Roundtable.
Yeah, and on top of that, should we also tease them with the other? Because do we have a date yet?
We don't have a date yet, but we will be doing weekly webinars with influencers from the vacation rental space to talk about very specific topics in which they are experts in. And so we're building that lineup now, and we'll be bringing that to you each and every week on a different night of the week.
Lisa.
Yeah.
Insurance.
Wait, Janet, you're muted, Janet.
Okay.
What?
Hey, sorry.
Hey.
I know you're wrapping up and I came in at the very end. I kind of forgot about this. So I apologize. But I just noticed that one of the topics you were going to talk about, and I know you probably don't want to rehash things, but about the pro host.
Yes. So it was at the very top of the webinar. When you get the recording, just watch the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And we deal with all that. They got rid of everybody on the Airbnb Pro host team.
That's great.
basically decommissioning.
There's the cliff notes for you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little bit worried. So I have an account manager.
Not anymore, you don't.
Probably not.
Responding to me though.
Well,
So
maybe you do, but I don't know.
I thought that they would have, if he got fired, I wouldn't hear from him or he wouldn't reply.
Is he on the pro host team?
I don't know. How do I know if he's on the pro host team?
Ask him.
Yeah.
Okay.
You may just straight up ask him. I mean, there are. I don't want to say it's non-existent, but it's. Let's put it this way. I know 5 people on that team, and there's one currently that still has a job, and he said that even his team is getting shrunk further. So I don't know. James Robinson was and he was like the director of the pro host team. So like he was the top person, and I don't know if maybe he stays on, but
Elliot here on the East Coast. My person was recently hired over from Uber in the last maybe month or 2. No, 2 months. And she spoke with me today. I didn't ask her about this. This is the first I've heard about it, but I will.
Yeah.
we were having regular conversations today.
So those of us who have account managers, are they on the pro host team? Is that?
Well, how many properties do you manage?
I've just got 21.
yeah, that would be part of the pro host team. So I mean, maybe you're lucky. The team's been severely gutted. Like I've been told by multiple people that there's not really, basically it's been deprioritized, and based off of that, they're probably out. Yeah.
That's devastating.
Opens up a great opportunity for those of us who want to be pro host. I don't know. Pro host thing.com or something. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the chat, but I'm going to head out, everyone.
So watch the replay. You'll see a little bit more about it, and then bring more questions you have to the group on Facebook. We'll talk about them there, and also on next week's Tuesday night call.
Yeah.
And make sure you're on at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
All right. Will do.
All right, bye.
I'll be
Bye,
doing
guys.
this
Have a great night.
Yep. But